welcome back to the Sensible Mama podcast. I am Paulina Westcott, your host. I am joined today by Philippa Cox. She is a midwife of 20 years. She has a wealth of experience. I'm super excited for the conversation today. So with no further ado, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive right into it.
Hello, Paulina. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. I'm super excited to be here as well. So I'm from Australia and I have been a midwife since 2003. And I've been able to have the most incredible midwifery career basically because I'm a very adventurous person and it married so beautifully with this career. And I was able to work all over the world from a tertiary hospital in Abu Dhabi where twin births were normalized. Get that, they were normalized. A doctor didn't want to be in the room if both babies were head down. I mean, how cool is that? That never happens in
Amazing.
our countries, hey. And breech births were relatively normalized as well. It was awesome. So I got a lot of valuable experience there. And I also had the beautiful privilege of working with Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, for 3 years and worked in countries like Yemen and northern Pakistan. That's really close to where Osama bin Laden got shot and close to where Malalia, the woman who she had acid put on her face from the Taliban. I was working in those places. And also a refugee camp in Ethiopia I looked after South Sudanese refugees fleeing war. And they were incredible, incredible experiences. And I've also worked all over Australia in Indigenous communities and outback hospitals as well. So I've had the most beautiful and incredibly diverse midwifery career. And one of the things that I'm doing now, I left clinical practice about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago now, and I really knew that I can help. Well, I know that I can help. I am helping women in such a broader scale. Because what I found in my career, every time I came back to Australia, there was more complications in birth, more interventions in birth, more fear in birth that is totally unfounded. Because when I was working in countries that didn't have obstetric interventions, guess what? Women weren't scared. They didn't
It
have a
almost seems
narrative.
antithetical, you know?
Yeah,
It almost seems
exactly.
backwards.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. They didn't get the constant media coverage. They didn't go and see the doctor the day that they peed on a stick and got 2 lines and were assessed for risk. Because as soon as we're assessed for risk, it puts fear into our mind, into our bodies. It's really crazy like that. So I
So
really
wild.
wanted to help women on a broader scale. So what I'm doing at the moment, I'm on my final realm of publishing my book. It's my very first book. It's called Births Without Borders. It's a secret plug there, and it's detailing. It's got lots of stories in it about my work around the world and the lessons that I learnt, and how women can actually learn from these lessons to have a powerful pregnancy, a really vibrant pregnancy, and an incredible birth that they're really proud of. And then what I found, and I'm sure you found this too, Paulina, is that when you have an empowered birth, and I know that's such a catchphrase now, that you come out of it feeling like you're superwoman. What do you think about that?
That is absolutely true. So I had the honor and privilege of getting a sneak peek into the unfinished manuscript of this mentioned book, which you are welcome to shamelessly plug, please. And, I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing, but just in perusing it to a little later into the night last night than I probably should have. I should have been sleeping, but it was so powerful to read these stories. I mentioned to you before we hit record that here and I'm sure in Australia too, in the West in general, like there's this over medicalization of birth. It has become clinical, almost pathological, like you're sick. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and we are, like you mentioned, we're assessed for risk at every turn. And what if this thing happens? And what if that thing happens? Nothing is seen as a variation of normal. It's you have to fall within these guidelines, and if you fall just a hair outside of them, something could go wrong. And so that's what's in your head, and that's what's in your heart and your mind and your soul. And so, like you mentioned, like it's so fear based. And yes, the whole empowered birthing has become a catchphrase, but having walked my own path, into shaking myself free of the medical system and experiencing my own two very natural, very beautiful home births, I started wondering, like, why is this not the normal? Why is this so hard to come by, and why do you have to fight for this over here? And in your book, you tell these stories of these women who just they face the same things we face, the same potential risks, the same potential complications, and sometimes far, far worse given the remoteness of the place and the lack of access to potential necessary medical care. And yet these women face these things with grace and with love and with gratitude. And my question to you is, you have all this experience. How could we learn the lessons, the sort of the strengths of the East when it comes to childbirth, and how do we incorporate those into this over medicalized nature of birth in the West?
Yeah, that is a $64 million question, isn't it? And it's something that I address in my book. The first thing is belief, because the thing is, I mean, here's the thing, Polina. In the West, we are, I hate to say this, but we've become soft. We get out of a nice, comfortable bed with our nice, comfortable doona. We open up the shower that's right in our room, or if not, right in the house. We have a hot shower. We have a toilet that we can flush. We go to our fridge and get milk, 3-day-old milk that from our fridge, have a coffee. I mean, we don't have to fight for anything. Everything's just easy. It's with us. And it's getting more and more intense with the age of the internet coming the way that it is with ChatGPT and social media really playing a huge part on it. I mean, we've got access to information that we've never had before, ever, and that's really playing a part in it. And in countries that I've worked in, people are tough. OMG. I did not realize until I worked there ability, the capability, the strength that women and men, but particularly women, have. It floored me, absolutely floored me. Not only in the women that I looked after and helped look after, but also my staff as well. They were all local staff, and what they went through on a daily basis to go to work just floored me. And I got a lot of strength from that as well. So we have to remind ourselves that we have no idea how strong we actually are. And for someone that has been through, like Polina, 2 beautiful home births, you realize that strength. And when you realize that strength and you birth and you're within your own power instead of having the power taken away from I hate to say it, but a quite defunct medical system that focuses on risk and forgets about who we are and the spirit within us and the strength within us, you just come out of it a totally different woman, and you can absorb into your new identity as a mother much more profoundly than you can if you had a very traumatized birth where birth was done to you as opposed through you. So belief, that is the number one key, is belief in our own strength. Because we are far more capable of anything we ever dreamed we are. And I'll just tell you a little bit of a story that There was a woman in my care, this was in Yemen, and this also goes on to not only the strength of a woman, but also the love for her baby. Would you like to hear it? Yeah?
Absolutely, please.
So I was in Yemen, and this woman came in with her mother-in-law, and she didn't look very pregnant. She didn't look very pregnant at all, but she was in active labor. Now in Yemen, I have to say that there's no ultrasounds, there's no blood tests, there's no peeing on a stick to see if you actually are pregnant. How they recognize a pregnancy in a lot of these countries is when they experience the first quickening, which is the first baby movements. That's around between 16 and 20 weeks. That's when they
Wow.
definitely say, yes, I'm pregnant. Before then, of course, they'll have an idea because they understand the periods, the menstrual cycle, but they don't actually fully recognize it within themselves until the baby starts to move. So how they recognize their supposed due date is by the moon, by the cycles in the moon. And in traditional Arabic countries, it's also based on the Arabic calendar as well, which is a lot different to our Gregorian calendar. It's a lot longer. So this woman came in, she didn't look very pregnant. She's going, I'm painting, I'm painting. This is all in Arabic, mind you. I've got a translator by me, but in the end I did know a bit of Arabic as well. And she ended up birthing a baby that was the size of my palm. We estimated that baby to be about 20. Now I was working with a bunch of local midwives. There was no obstetrician on site. There was a general surgeon who could do a cesarean section. So basically, I was it. There was no NICU. We had upstairs in the building some kind of a special care baby nursery with an isolette and a couple of humidity cribs um, that were donated by USAID. Thank you, USAID. And that was the only real thing that we had. And we had some drugs and we had little drips that we could feed baby with. So in the West, like in America, in a situation like that, that baby would be whisked off before you knew it to the NICU. It would be surrounded by all the tubes, it would be ventilated and everything like this. So what we did, because there was nothing like that in Yemen, right? Nothing. We put the little baby, the size of my palm, between her breasts. She had one of those gym bras on, and she just put it in there. And we were expecting the baby to pass away. The baby didn't pass away. She started to feed, just get little tiny droplets of colostrum. We saw her just putting these little tiny droplets of colostrum into the baby's mouth, and the baby was licking them up. So we thought, oh, this baby could actually live. So we ended up putting a little drip in its arm and gave it some fluid. And she kept on putting little drops of colostrum into the baby's mouth. And she stayed with us for a week, and that was all she could really stay with us. But she religiously, day and night, just put a little cup, drops of colostrum into the baby's mouth. She left a week later. The baby had grown. The baby was still alive. The baby was always here, surrounded by her love, surrounded by her heat, her body warmth, and her heartbeat. It was almost like she was finishing, and it was a girl, by the way, almost finishing like she was gestating outside of the womb, a bit like a kangaroo. It's actually called kangaroo care.
Yes.
So she actually left the hospital a week later, and we had no idea what happened to her until 6 months later she bounced into the maternity ward with her big, beautiful, bouncing baby on her arm. Says, "Oh, this is the baby. This is her. She survived." And she was so healthy. I
I
mean, that's a
have
miracle.
chills. That is unreal. You tell anybody the beginning of that story and ask them to gamble on the outcome. You know what the gamble would be. Like
Yeah.
there's no way that baby makes it without a NICU. without all, and not to say that the NICU is unnecessary, nothing
It's
like
not
that, but
unnecessary at all. It's
it's
changed
just
the life of
no.
millions and millions of babies.
Absolutely, but it's a testament, like you said, to the strength, the love, the dedication, the commitment of a woman. And that mom, so far away from where probably most of my listeners are, it could be any mom, it could be you or me, right? Like, we're all capable of that level of strength and grit and determination and compassion. And my goodness, that's
Yeah.
wild.
And she was also lucky that it was her first baby. So she had time to do this. The
Yeah.
tragic thing in places like this is that women have a lot of responsibility within the household and they can't afford to have the time to spend 1 or 2 months in a NICU or in a SCABU to look after their children. So a lot of the women who did birth preterm couldn't even put them in here. They had too many things to do. So in Arabic, there's a beautiful word called inshallah, God willing. And that was a philosophy that they basically breathed by. And it really helps them to deal with the triumphs and the tragedies of life.
Puts into perspective so much that we take for granted, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But on the
What a
other side,
story. That is just incredible.
yeah, the size of my palm. And it just goes to show you that how beautiful the human body is and how much as the medical perspective has done a lot in the terms of saving women and saving babies, there's still a lot that they don't quite understand at the moment. There's another dimension, there's another perspective, there's such a spiritual realm to it. It's not as what I found, it's not as linear as what the medical system portrays it to be. There's so many other
Right.
aspects involved in it.
To ask you, I mean, I can pretend to try to understand what it's like to be a mother without access to the medical system. But as the caretaker, as the provider, as the midwife, how do you ground yourself? Like, I imagine here in the West, a midwife goes through the motions with the knowledge that there is a safety, net of, in the worst case scenario we can do an operation, in the worst case scenario we have all these tools for resuscitation, we have all of these tools. And I figure that must give you some semblance of protection for a worst case scenario, making it easier to deal with complications. But when you don't have access to those, how do you mentally, perhaps spiritually, emotionally, how do you get through?
Yeah, such a good question. And in the beginning, it's really, really difficult because you are used to a safety net. My first mission in Yemen, I was it. I was the safety net, you know. I didn't have a doctor to go, I think she needs a cesarean section or she needs a vacuum extraction or anything like that. I was it. I was it. And it's something you just have to keep on reminding myself that I'm in a different situation. I'm in a different country. I've got different resources. I can only do the best as I possibly can. And that's it. That is it. It is tough. I did find it tough, but I went for a second mission. I went back for a third mission. And then I loved it so much. I went and I studied a Master's of Public Health. I finished that because I was going to go back and do much more. And then, life just goes on and things go in a different way. So I haven't been back since. And I feel that that window is now closed because now I'm on to bigger and better things, helping a lot more women around the world. The interesting thing is that in the West, we also practice childbirth and obstetrics. I'm going to say obstetrics for a reason, in a very defensive way because guess what? We're afraid of litigation. And Australia is very similar to the US in that. So one of the interesting things is with the management, say, particularly late in labour, late in pregnancy, I should say, and during labor. It's all based on risk again. It's all very conservative, and we just forget that the female body knows what to do. It's just incredible to witness. I mean, I've witnessed this thousands and thousands of times. I mean, I think I've helped about 3,000 women with their births, but I've witnessed probably tens of thousands of women birth. So I have seen this over and over and over again, how when women have a chance, have an opportunity to have that agency, to have it, to actually own it, to have that responsibility of, I know my body. I know what my body is up to because, as I said before, I think I said it before, I can't remember when I said it, but I mean, with these thousands and thousands of births I've witnessed, guess what? No two are the same. No two pregnancies are the
Right.
same. And that's what's kept me so interested in midwifery all these years, is that it's always an adventure. It's always so amazing to see how women can actually do it. They can actually birth, and they can actually birth really, really well if they have the belief, if they have the knowledge to do so.
Yeah. It's funny. So I recently became a doula, and I am going through my own, discovery of what is entailed. I experienced my own two births, wildly different one from the next, but that was the extent of experience I had. Everything else was hearsay, through books that I listened to or podcasts or watching birth vlogs and so forth. And so now when you're here and you're in the room with this woman and she is going through it. I mean, birth is a portal, okay? First of all, you go into a whole different realm. As far as I'm concerned, it is unlike any other experience you can have on this plane of existence. But the other thing it does is it is a portal into motherhood, especially your first birth. You don't know what you're capable of. You don't know your strength. You don't know the courage required, and you don't know where you're going to find it. But I'm telling you, I'm talking to the audience, and many of you I don't know, and many of you I may never, likely will never know, but I'm telling you, it is there. You have it within you. And aside from just saying that, I don't know how much more I can do to convince a woman to believe in her own power. So I would like to request that you make an effort. What would you say to a woman who may be feeling fear, maybe nervousness, she's feeling the weight of all the risks and the medical what ifs and so forth. How would you convince this mother or mother to be that it is within her and that she can?
Yeah, first of all, I wouldn't convince her. First of all, I'd unpack, where do you get these beliefs from? Where's this fear come from? Really unpack it. Where? Where is it, from the stories that you heard? Is it from the media? Is it from the Hollywood movies? Is it from your doctor saying, Chit, you are A, B, C, D, and E? Where is it coming from? And then once you realize where it's from, then you can start to unpack it and sort of go, well, this is my experience. This is what I've seen. Thousands, not once, not twice. I'm talking thousands of times. Not just in America, not just in Connecticut, not just in Australia, but all over the world. We are all the same. We have the same biology. We have the same uterus. We have the same blood coursing through our bodies. The only thing that is different is belief. And is it in that belief? And it might not happen overnight. It might happen just from positive affirmations, from reading positive stories, from podcasts like this. Surround yourself in positivity, and that will also permeate into every cell in your body. Because the thing is, fear just isn't mental. Fear resides in every single cell in your body. So even if you think, yeah, I've got this, it's all right, I've got this, but subconsciously you haven't dealt with the fear, your body naturally contracts because every single cell in your body remembers that fear. It feels it because trauma and fear and also the great things in life, it all resides in our body, in our cells. And that is backed up by science. It's not just a woo-woo thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually backed up by science. So then you
Yeah.
can start to release all this fear. And you'll find over the period, and this is one of the things that I love about when I was working as a caseload midwife, where we looked after someone from the time they peed on a stick and got 2 lines to 2 months after their baby was born. I could see their fear in the beginning. In fact, there was this one woman, I think I've written about her in my book, that she came to me with her first pregnancy and she was just, I remember her eyes were like saucers. She was so scared and going, I know that sometime I've got to get this out, but how can I do it? I've got such a low threshold of pain. I don't know how I can do it. And she was really, really worried. And the thing is,
Mm.
through the constant affirmations or through the constant belief, we unpacked everything about where she got all these beliefs from and everything. And then we um, reinforced it with all the positive beliefs and the strength that she actually can birth. I could see her through her pregnancy. She had a brilliant diet. She exercised. She did something she could do sustainably. Ended up becoming, she was reasonably healthy to begin with, but she shone because the one thing I've also realized is health is the number one determinant apart from belief. It's your physical determinant. Belief is the other dimension, but health is number one. Because if
Mm.
you eat good, wholesome foods and limit processed foods and drink lots of water and don't drink all that, you know, soda stuff, you're actually feeding not only yourself into vibrancy, particularly in your last trimester, but also you're feeding your baby in the most beautiful, delightful way that will see them through for the rest of their life. So she did all this. And the thing is that she took my advice and she just embodied it. So by the time she actually went into labor, plus she had a really great support partner. He was really good. And so support, particularly
Mm.
when you're in labor, is the other huge key, massive key, because it
Agreed.
can either make or break a childbirth experience. And he was fantastic. He
Yes.
was so good. So by the time she actually got into labor, guess what? She was fine. She breathed it through. She got into this beautiful hypnotic state, this transcendental state where you're between, I don't know, even know where you are, but it's like this huge emergence when your baby is born into the realm of motherhood. It's like exactly what you said. You go through a portal and you come out as a mother.
Yeah.
And she had a beautiful water birth. She breathed her baby out beautifully. And she was in total control at a time where you shouldn't, people think you're not in control. But there are steps you can actually take to take that control back. And belief is number one. And taking steps like breathing your breath holds the key. You know, what happens when you're
Mm.
scared? You're up here, aren't you, with your breathing? And when you're nice and relaxed, it all goes down. And your energy goes down as well. And that's what needs to happen in birth. What happens when you're up here? When your energy's up here, when you're frightened, how is the baby going to be birthed when you're fighting it the whole step of the way? Whereas when you believe in yourself and believe how strong you actually are, That's an understatement beyond understatements, beyond an understatement. You can do it. Now, in the medical systems, like you have in America and like we have in Australia, it's really, if you're going to birth in a hospital, it takes a hell of a lot of courage to stand up to that and to go, no, I'm actually going against the norm. And
Hmm.
in home birth, I've heard people say, how can you be so selfish to have a home birth? It's got nothing to do with being selfish at all. It's got to do with, guess what? Drum roll, mic drop, bing, self trust. That you
Yes.
trust yourself so completely that I can do this from the belief that you are strong and you can control what is perceived to be an uncontrollable experience through the
Hmm.
breath, through meditation. You are in total control of your body, releasing every cell at a time. And so your body relaxes, your baby can come down, and then next thing you know, whoops, my baby is coming.
It's so incredible. It's really funny. You said something that made me kind of laugh. People often tell me, wow, you had both your first and your second baby at home. You are so brave. And it's funny to me because I'm very comfortable at home. Staying at home actually requires less of me than it would given the alternative choice. I consider moms who go to the hospital and moms who go in for a C-section, like, you want to talk about some bravery. You're going to go embark on this journey that you have never done before if you're a first time mother. You're going to go to an unfamiliar place with unfamiliar people. You're going to put your trust in people you probably have never met before, maybe once or twice. And or you're going to go under major surgery. I mean, okay, so C-sections are very common and they're a very routine operation, but they are an operation nonetheless. It is not a nothing. Do you know what I mean? It is a major surgery. And so people who say, oh, I'd rather just schedule my C-section and get it over with, and they're calling me brave for just staying home and hanging out on my couch. I'm like, are you crazy? You guys are the brave ones. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. Everybody's got different, history, different needs, and so forth. Some people should go to the hospital. Some people do legitimately need a C-section. But if we're talking comparing our levels of bravery, I consider what I did kind of, I wouldn't say mundane because nothing about birth is mundane, but certainly it's not, I wouldn't call
Normal?
it more brave. Yeah, normal. But I wouldn't call it more brave than the mamas go into the hospital and try to do this there. Like, hats off to you guys, you know?
And you bring up a really interesting point there about safety, about where you
Mm,
feel safe. So you feel so safe in your home. It's your home, it's your comfort zone, it's where you hang out, it's where your life is. And then when you go to a hospital, before I go into that, safety is the number one primal response, right? Our primal need. Our number one primal need is
yes.
safety. Even if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety, number one, exactly. And that's undisputed. So some people feel safe in a hospital with all the bells and whistles. Some people feel safe at home
Hmm.
doing all this. But I would further unpack of why you feel safe with all the bells and whistles, because that goes a lot deeper as well than what
Yes.
we actually realize. And
Mm.
when you are in a different room with all the smells, particularly the smell of a hospital, the smell of bleach. I know I've worked in one or two or three with strange sounds, strange noises, strange sight. Your body subconsciously on some subconscious level, on some way, says, no, this isn't safe because it's unfamiliar. We are geared
Yeah.
towards the familiar, to be in the familiar and the comfortable. That's how we are biologically geared to be. And then coupled with the risk assessments and with the CTGs or the baby monitoring and, no, you can't go in the pool. Oh dear. no, you can't do this, you can't do that. Can't. Sorry, it's my body, it's my labor. Interesting thing is, and this is one thing I absolutely love. Okay, and it's just a nice analogy. You know, when you're around to someone that you know's place for dinner, and you're sitting down at the dinner table, do you actually ask them, "Can I go to the toilet?" Yeah, you kind of do, don't you?
No.
Because it's not your place, right?
Well,
No, because
sure,
no one
sure.
can go to the
Yeah, that's
toilet.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the number of people I've witnessed when I've looked after them, not as a caseload capacity, but as a staff midwife in other hospitals, they're in the birthing room, their birthing room, and they ask me if they can go to the
Mm,
toilet. So you don't even feel comfortable enough to just go to the toilet. And then you're worried why your labor isn't going the way that you think it might go, why you
hmm.
need more intervention, why labor is stalled. You know, it's really interesting. There's a lot more into it than we actually give ourselves credit for. A
Yeah.
lot more into it. And one of the things I really believe, and as I've witnessed it thousands of times, is it's not just birth is not just one or two dimensional. It goes into other dimensions that I don't even know we're familiar with yet. It's really interesting. And that exactly what you were talking about,
Mm.
the way that you go through a portal, is fascinating. And you come out, that strength you have when you come out is incredible. Can you imagine? Okay, I'm just going to just put a wish out there. Can you imagine if every woman in the Western world had the trust within themselves to have a home birth, to
Mm.
birth their babies at home, or even if they need to be in a hospital, to birth the babies that they want to be, how they want to lie, how they want to move, how they want to be. If every woman had that and came out the other side feeling fully empowered, feeling like, yeah, I can be a true leader of my family, can you imagine how different the
Mhm.
world would be?
I wish I could say yes. I find it very hard to imagine that, which is, it says something. That's wild.
Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
you loved it so much, Paulina, is that now you've got a Sensible Mama podcast. You're training to be a doula. You see it. You
Yeah.
absolutely
And it's
see it.
incredible. I was at a hospital birth last week. It was quite the marathon birth. And there came a point where, right, wrong, or indifferent, it was it was becoming evident, even to me as a very natural minded, home birthing mama, that the end of the road was going to be a C-section on this particular birth. Hindsight 2020, maybe things should have been done differently, but the way it was going and how things were looking, that was how it was going to go. And I had this moment where I realized that my responsibility had shifted from giving this mama the birth that she wanted, which was at this point completely impossible. She wanted a home birth, and here we were in a hospital, and so that had already gone out the window, and I was trying to keep it as close to that as I could, and it was whatever. And I realized that now my job is to do everything within my power to make sure that this mama held on to however much control she possibly could, so that at the end of this she wasn't traumatized and it wasn't something that she was cornered into or that was done to her. And so there was a moment where I had this conversation with her where I said, you've made the decision for a C-section. If I were in your shoes at this moment, I would have made the same decision, and that is totally fine. But I want you to know that if you decided right now to get up and put on your shoes and walk out of this hospital, you have that freedom. You have that right. I want you to know that you are making the decisions here and you are calling the shots, and nobody is going to call the shots for you. Not me, not the doctor, not the nurse, not the anesthesiologist. Nobody here is going to make the decision for you. You are going to be given information, and we're going to give you all of the information we possibly can for you to make the decision. But ultimately, the decision is yours, and you're going to make the right choice. I know you are, because you love your baby the most. You know what I mean? And it was that moment where I could see something shift in her where she said, yes, this is my decision. And it wasn't. I went into this not wanting a C section and having no desire to be here. But now that we're here, I am still in control and this is still my birth. And, at the end of it, she had a beautiful, healthy baby and she had gratitude. And of course, she has, wishes that it had gone a different way, naturally. But I felt such a win as a doula that she didn't walk away with it feeling traumatized. You were saying, can you imagine if every mom, every birth was felt with empowerment. There's so much talk about birth trauma these days, and the word anxiety, I want to look up the statistics. How many times does the word anxiety happen in modern discourse? It's absurd, and it's not okay with me. Why are we so anxious? And specifically in our line of work, why is the subject of birth so ridden with anxiety? And so here we are doing what we're doing, trying to help the moms out there regain a sense of control and autonomy and a lack of anxiety, right?
Absolutely. And you hit a really good point about her decisions, about feeling that it was her
Mm-hmm.
decision. And that's where, when you're in a hospital situation, that's where a doula worth her weight in gold. If you don't have a midwife, doulas are incredible. And I really take my hats off to doulas. I was looking after, this is when I was a caseload midwife here in Australia. And I was looking after someone, they had their first pregnancy. They were healthy. They went through their first pregnancy beautifully, went into spontaneous labor. It was all so exciting, progressed beautifully. She was spontaneously pushing. It was all fantastic. And then the baby's head came out and baby's shoulder got stuck underneath her pubic bone. It's for your listeners, it's a very rare thing to happen. It's called a shoulder dystocia, and it is, in fact, it's an emergency because your baby can't come out. The thing is, there's many things that we can do and that we're trained in doing that opens up your pelvis that births your baby. So immediately I just turned around on her all fours. She was in like a running start position, like the athletes. And that really opens up the outlet of your pelvis. And a baby was born fine, great condition, strong, healthy, screaming,
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. What happened after that? She had a massive hemorrhage that sometimes happens after this emergency. Okay. And that was okay. We have the drugs. And guess what? We would have had the drugs at home as well to actually treat this. And it was treated very, very well because, as you know, we are trained ad nauseum to all obstetric emergencies, and we can do them blindfolded with a toothpick and a rubber band, just like MacGyver, right? And so it was all managed beautifully. Now, the thing is, we were in a small hospital in rural Australia. She needed blood. She needed to go to a tertiary hospital. So she was flown to a tertiary hospital, and she woke up there in the intensive care unit. So this is like, whoa, this is big, this is huge, but this is life in Australia. It's common. That's why we've got the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Fantastic service, gives medical treatment to people thousands away, of kilometres away from a hospital. Now, the thing is, she could have had the most intense birth trauma from that whole experience. And I just want to reiterate for your viewers is that any of this also could have been managed at home. Because guess what we have at home in our countries? We have these things called ambulances that are really good at saving lives as well and doing all this stuff. They're great. And they also have wheels on the ambulance so they can take you to a hospital in a really good time. So I just don't want any of your viewers to be scared about this. Actually be invigorated by the fact that it was handled well. And the thing is that she didn't have any trauma from that at all. I was shocked. And all she could say was, you know what, you knew what to do. And you were talking you were talking it, everything you were doing to me, with me all the time. And it was relaxed and it was confident. And even though there were a lot of people in the room, you've introduced everybody. I knew exactly what everybody was doing. You kept me informed. I felt that I was safe. Remember that primal
That's the word
feeling,
again.
Winnie, that safe? She felt she was safe because we kept her informed through the entire process. So she knew she was going to wake up in this tertiary hospital. She knew it. And so when she did wake up in that tertiary hospital with her husband and her baby, holding her hand, she knew exactly where she was, what she was, and she felt safe and she felt that she was really well taken care for. Now, the interesting thing is that about, I don't know, 18 months later, she came to see me for her second pregnancy. And she was all happy and all fantastic that, yes, I'm pregnant again, it's all good. So we're talking about birth options. And I was fully expecting her to opt for a cesarean section, which she had every right to do so because it was a very, hard delivery, or birth, I should say. But guess what? She said, no, I'm going to birth my baby. I did it before, I can do it again. And besides, you guys knew what to do. So all through her pregnancy time, when she came into spontaneous labor early one morning, phoned me up, I met her at the hospital. She was fine. She was relaxed. She was into it. She progressed really, really quickly. Birthed her baby actually standing up really quickly.
Oh,
Really quickly. It's like, yeah, it's all good. It's all fine. She had a baby because she didn't have the fear. She didn't have the trauma that she had before. And this is backed by research. You Google this into any research. One of the predictors of birth trauma is feeling like A, you're not in control and you don't know what is happening. When you are well informed and you know what to do, and people around you are calm and everyone has a job, then the trauma is non existent. And this is what has happened to this
right.
girl. And the interesting thing is with cesarean sections is that people forget that it is a major operation because it's so routine these days. I mean, they cut through
Hmm.
layer upon layer upon layer of skin and tissue and your fascia. And it's only very recently, in the last, say, year or so, that I'm actually become more interested and fascinating by fascia. Fascia is the lining that lines all your body organs, lines your muscles, lines everything, lines every single muscle fiber. And when your fascia is relaxed, it actually opens yourself up as well. And one of the things I'm really querying about, and I'm quite curious about, is with a cesarean section, they cut through the fascia. So when the fascia is actually rejoined, there's scar tissue there. And that scar
Right.
tissue can become adhesions. It can really affect you throughout your life. And considering when women are having babies, they've still got half their life left after they've actually had their baby. That's a woman might have to potentially deal with in their later years. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's fascinating. There's so much to be learned. Um, Man, I am so glad we had this talk. I cannot wait for your book to be released. I can't wait to read it in its entirety because this merging of medical technology advancements with this other side of it that is so woefully neglected in the West. I think it takes a voice like yours to really tie it together, to empower women to believe in themselves, to consider why they may not believe in themselves. Why don't you feel safe? Why don't you have that trust? There's so much value to this, and I'm really excited about it. Before we do wrap up, would you like to make any plugs where people can find you, and when we can expect to see your books hit the shelves?
Yeah, sure. Well, I actually have a business called Radiant Motherhood, and my website's radiantmotherhood.com.au, and you can actually get my book from there. You can actually pre-order my book, and I actually keep a note of
Ooh.
everyone who's pre-ordering it. So when it is actually published early next year, maybe February, March next year, I think. It does take a while. I'm in the final throes of editing now. It's going to go back this week to the editor, then there's a layout and the publishing. So that actually does take time. And on socials, I'm Radiant Motherhood or The Radiant Motherhood on socials. And also I do a lot of work with my private Facebook page, Philippa Cox. So you can find me on any of those.
And I will make sure to link everything in the description so people can find it very easily. This was so wonderful. When your book is released, or maybe even before then, I would love to have you back on again, because I feel like we just scratched the surface and we could talk on and on for hours about all of this. It's endlessly fascinating and beautiful, and very grateful to have had the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you, Paulina, and I really enjoyed it too. I can talk about this for days.
It's wonderful. All right, thank you, everybody. I will see you guys all in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe, please, and share the show if you think it will bring value to a friend of yours. Thank you.